All right, good morning, folks. JB and JC here with our with our monthly Ask Us Anything event. It's April 2022. And we're going to have a great presentation for you today. For anybody visiting us new, thank you for joining us. Make sure you sign up and register get those monthly notifications. For all of you, we will be sending this recording out probably the end of the week. We can't get to it today. We're jumping on planes this afternoon. End of the week, we publish this out on our YouTube channel at FFLconsultants.com. Please go out and do us a big favor if you can, like, subscribe, and share those links if you think any of your friends and fellow FFLs can use any of the information we're talking about. And what do? We do everything from licensing to inspections to presentations to training to audits to inventories, and most importantly, keeping you guys out of trouble. We're going to have hopefully a guest speaker on today. He actually has an inspection going on right now. Unfortunately, he's in the midst of it with some real concerns. We're going to be discussing those later during our case studies. Stay tuned, stay with us. But we do it all. Just give us a call, go out to our website and learn more. And here we're going to go. We're going to jump into our sponsor and promoter today. We're happy to have Seth DeSaro, owner and operator of Texas Silencer Company. We're going to learn more about what Seth does, and most importantly, for a few minutes, just learn what are the advantages to getting into the suppressor business if you're not already, and what Seth and his company can do with you guys.
All right, Seth, you unmuted there? Still see you muted. Are you going to be on camera too?
We're unmuted. You want me to put the camera on?
You can if you want to. Let people see your beautiful face. Why not?
There you go.
There you go. Oh, he's in his office. I know that room really well.
I can't see what I look like.
Well, that's all right. You don't need to. You know what you look like.
You'll have to watch the recording. There you go.
Yeah. So we've had the honor of working with Texas Silencer Company for, oh God, probably a year now, or close to it. Seth?
Yep.
Yep, you came to us a while back. We've been supporting you on a number of different fronts, primarily with your compliance efforts and all that kind of stuff. So, why? The big thing for me is people get into the gun business for any number of reasons. You've obviously you're in the firearms business, but you've really focused on the silencer industry. And talk a little bit about how did that come to be for you? How did you decide one day, hey, I think I'm going to be the manufacturer of silencers?
I did that primarily, honestly, because I was looking for a way to support gun stores in the United States. I wanted to, quite frankly, bring revenue to gun stores. I want to keep gun stores in neighborhoods. It's an incredibly important part of the community, and my passion is hunting and suppressors. So I looked around for a silencer company dedicated to the hunting community. I didn't find one, so we just made it. And it's been going pretty well. I've been very blessed for the last 8 years or so. And again, our focus is entirely on the American hunter. We're developing products for them, and we're doing everything we can to promote hunting in the United States with suppressors.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about it is I kind of get how suppressors, silencers are manufactured, and I get all that. Obviously, there's far more firearm manufacturers, and we're certainly much more involved with firearm manufacturers overall. But when I went down to the shop, I was like, this is not, it's very integral how you manufacture a silencer, but I thought there was so much more that went into it. And it was a really interesting visit to see how the different pieces, parts, and components were put together, and taking a look. I love how you kind of slice open the suppressor, the silencer, to show how it's made with all the baffles and all the pieces and parts. So that was really interesting. Talk about, the silencer industry overall. It's a pretty tight-knit community, right?
Some of it is. I would say the kind of the higher level companies are. The bigger companies are. So the premier silencer manufacturers are pretty close knit. We're all connected through Silencer Shop and the American Suppressor Association. So in that group of maybe say 25 manufacturers, we all get along very well. And we all pool our resources together to get legislation passed that supports Second Amendment and legislation blocked that infringes upon the Second Amendment, and also to pass legislation that's good for silencer customers in gun stores.
Right.
And we'll get into this, I know, later on, but the result of that kind of effort from ourselves and from other major manufacturers and from Silencer Shop and the American Suppressor Association is the e-forms, which has taken the time it takes for a customer to get a silencer from about a year or so, from the time they buy it at the gun store to the time they can take it home, down to perhaps about 90 days or less now.
Yeah, we're actually seeing them come in. I think the last one, a lot of our dealers are e-form. They go through the e-form process. I think and most of them are reaching out to us, letting us know. Obviously, it's just started, so but we're seeing it less than 80 days. I think we've had a couple that have processed in 60. The last one I got a call about was last week, was 78 days. So that's a pretty significant turn when you compare it to the paper process that, I tell everybody 9 months is a good case scenario as far as the turn on a Form 4. So less than 90 days is beautiful. So
it's new, so you can't really predict exactly how long it's going to take, and we are dealing with the ATF, so there are a lot of sort of unknowns involved.
It's a beautiful process, I'll tell you.
Yeah,
it's about an hour to process a Form 4 and get everything squared away, and having a Form 4 approved within 90 days would be just spectacular.
I mean, we've seen stuff come back in 7 days.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So
there's no way to be sure, but throughout this year, I think that it'll definitely become faster and faster, the processing.
Yeah, I think once they get their head wrapped around it, I think it's going to be a nice, simple process for everybody to go through, and hopefully we'll drive down the cost of some of the fingerprinting costs. I think that's the bulk of the cost with transitioning to Form 4 is that live scan fingerprinting solution. So it's not cheap, but with silencers and the opportunity with NFA and those sales, I think that the cost, the benefit analysis there is huge. So
sure.
You mentioned it earlier, Texas Silencer Company really focuses on the hunting community, but that's not all you have product for, right? You do have product that can be affixed to the AR platform rifles or pistols or whatnot as well.
Sure, and that's true about most suppressors, is that they'll work well for hunting. They'll also work well as a patrol rifle. They work well flanking and people just having fun. Our focus as a brand and our efforts as a company are geared towards the silencers that are best for hunters and for hunting in general. But yes, our silencers are sold to plenty of police departments, for SWAT teams. They're precision shooters, use them all the time. They're great for anyone who just wants to shoot and have fun.
Yeah.
And again, that's true for most suppressors. There may be some features that are more suited towards a tactical weapon, and they're suited towards a precision rifle. But in general, you can see silencers crossing those different platforms and being used for all of it.
Yep. And I know from a sales perspective and such, especially working with a lot of FFLs that are NFA dealers, the beauty of it is in a lot of situations, the silencer can actually fit on multiple devices. So you can actually use one suppressor, one silencer for multiple firearms.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
our silencers would fit on anything from say the rifle, the 30 caliber rifle silencer, fit anything from a 22 on up to a 300 Remington Ultra Mag.
Yeah.
So you could have 10 rifles, all threaded barrels, and one silencer for all of them.
Yeah.
Eventually, most customers are going to want to have one silencer for each of their rifles.
Yeah.
But and that's something we also touch on for the FFLs on the call, is getting their customers into silencers as a way for them to generate revenue for the company.
Yeah, and I think for the audience today, I think it's important to kind of talk to that. If you're not an NFA dealer, it's such a huge opportunity. I know we obviously support a ton of NFA dealers, but if someone's looking to get in the business, what does that opportunity look like? It's really simple to get approved to be a dealer, but beyond that, what's the unknown? What are the unknown factors that people just may not be taking into account when deciding whether or not to be an NFA dealer?
I think you look at probably three big issues. One is they wouldn't necessarily know what products to carry or what to talk to their customers about if they don't feel they're an expert on silencers. The other issue would be how do they become capable of selling silencers legally? And then the third issue would be just the process of transferring the silencers, the kind of intimidation that goes along with doing Form 3s and Form 4s. As far as processing the paperwork, the story stuff involved, the answer is simple: consult with you guys. Talk to FFL Consultants, have them tell you what to do, and keep them on speed dial. As far as involved, it's like any other regulatory part of your gun store. You learn how to do the paperwork and you just do it over and over and over again. It takes a little bit of time to figure out how to do it the first time, but once you figure out how to do it, it becomes easy. And doing government paperwork is nothing new for a gun store.
Yeah.
The other being not necessarily feeling that they know what brands to carry or what products to sell. That is also easy. Quite frankly, there's about 150 or more than 150 silencer manufacturers in the US. There's about 26 or 27 that are carried by Silencer Shop. Those would be the top brands.
Yeah.
Go to Silencer Shop, look at their list of manufacturers, choose from that list. Anybody who's been chosen by Silencer Shop to be part of their inventory is going to be a good company, and you're not going to have disappointing customers. Which of those brands best fits your customers, or what several of those brands would best fit a variety of your different kinds of customers? Each gun store is going to know what to do more than anybody. But from that list, you can't go wrong.
Right.
You may find something on that list that suits you best, as opposed to another brand. One might suit you better than the other, but all of them are going to make your customers happy. As far as how to become a NFA dealer, it's extremely easy. You send a check to the ATF for either $500 if you do, I think it's $500,000 or less a year.
Yep.
Or $1,000 you do more than that. Each year you pay it. It's a tax. It's a special occupational tax. That's all there is to it. You send in your tax payment. You get a receipt. I don't know if this comes out on camera or not, but this is the receipt. It's a special occupational tax receipt. I make a distinction that it's not a license. A lot of dealers are concerned about getting an additional license to sell silencers. There is no license to sell silencers.
No.
There's no such thing as a Class 3 license. Everybody has an FFL, and you pay a tax. Tax allows you to transfer silencers. It's a very important distinction that you do not have to deal with a second license.
Right.
And
it takes about 4 weeks to get.
Yeah, I mean, it just takes a couple weeks to get. You fill out a simple form and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
So any questions they might have, I would obviously direct them to FFL Consultants. Any questions they have about products, I would look at what Silencer Shop carries.
Yeah. And Seth makes his way out to the field a few times a year to visit with clients and customers. So you never know, you might see him pop into your store. Seth, real quick, talk about the real differentiator from Texas Silencer Company and some of maybe the other, the Code of the West warranty.
Sure. Again, if you're not sure what products to carry, I would just make sure you're going to carry something that's supported by the brand. And for us, we back our silencers for any damage. Obviously, we back it for any defect, but we back it for any damage caused by the customer. There's nothing your customer can do to void their warranty. If they intentionally destroy their silencer, we will give them a new silencer for free. What we normally see are people who have made simple mistakes that anybody could make. They've cross-threaded the silencer onto their barrel. They shot the wrong caliber through the silencer, those kinds of things. We'll fix it for free, no questions asked. You need to find a company that will support their product so that your customers who are new to the industry, new to the silencers, they're never going to be disappointed and they're never going to feel used to it correctly. It's especially, I think, important for people who are getting into selling suppressors is to know they've got the support of the brand. Again, the brands that are listed on Silencer Shop website, they're all going to support their products. And you're not going to end up with unhappy customers if you choose from among those brands. There are only two who have our warranty, and that would be ourselves and a company called Rugged, that if your customer destroys it intentionally, we will fix it for free.
Seth, that's an outstanding warranty, and there's only a few companies even in the firearm industry that offer that level of warranty of products. So good on you for that, man. That's pretty interesting program and policy they have in place, and certainly one that sets you above the rest for sure. We've added Seth's contact information up here, questions at texassilencercompany.com. I'm sure Seth would love to hear from you if you have questions, you're interested in the industry. Obviously, reach out to us. We can help you get that tax taken care of. You can actually do it all online now. It's no longer a paper form that you have to submit or send a check. You can do it all through pay.gov. So if you're interested, we can definitely send you that link as well. Seth, thanks so much for joining us. I know that
Sure.
we're going to do a full session, probably live down there in your office, kind of talking about the different products and stuff. So stay tuned for that coming up here in the near future. We're going to get that scheduled. And I think I'm going to be seeing you not tomorrow, but on Wednesday.
Yep. Just make a point of that we don't make a move without talking to FFL Consultants. And we were in
Thanks for that, Seth.
for 8 years, and the ATF was wonderful, and everybody was friends, and they were coming by here all the time. No violations, no concerns. Everyone kept saying we're doing a wonderful job. And the world is different now. And we've changed the entire system, and it revolves around FFL Consultants now. And they'll be here in our building this week doing a review. They'll be back again in a couple of months. And they'll come by every few months or so to check on everything we're doing, because it's very different than it used to be. Even if you've been selling guns for 20 years, our dealers are telling us that things have changed. And you definitely want to have FFL Consultants as part of your business. You do not want to get surprised when they come by and things are entirely different than it used to be.
Now I got to buy Seth dinner when I'm down there for that plug. Wow. Well, Seth, thanks again. Once again, today's Ask Us Anything is brought to you by Texas Silencer Company down in the Dallas-Fort Worth market. So check out those products. And if you have questions, certainly feel free to reach out to us, and don't hesitate to reach out to Seth. He's a great resource, man. He knows the ins and outs. It's really an amazing business. So I enjoyed our time down there, and will enjoy my time down there again this week. So JB, take it from there.
Hopefully, yeah, guys, thanks a lot. And thank you, Seth. And Seth, I'm sure will be holding on if you guys got questions at the, towards the end of the presentation. He'll be back. So, hey, today's agenda, everyone. Thanks again for joining us today. We're going to go through the ATF inspection updates. We're going to talk about forced reset triggers. We've gotten a lot of open letter calls regarding this that hit the airwaves a couple of weeks ago. A lot of you have been asking, what does this mean for me? We're going to talk about NFAE Form 4. If you just give you the link, tell you it's out on YouTube, actually, in case you didn't know that. And then we're going to dig into the 5 deadly sins of the Biden administration, present a couple case studies to you guys. We told you we would. We'll bring you the results. Some of the results are in, and unfortunately a lot more pending, and we got a special guest talking about his inspection going on today. So let's get on with that, and again, tell you at the end about the NSSF programs. We're the big supporter for the NSSF. We love the NSSF, the Trade Association for Firearms everywhere, the firearms industry. And if you don't know who they are, stay tuned for more information. All right. So let's run through this. First of all, March IOI inspections. Typically on these calls, or these Zooms rather, we present the prior month's ATF inspection update and activities. They are not available yet. We checked in the last hour. They're still not published. So we promise to send you the update as soon as they are available. So you get an email from us, similar to, from JB at FFL Consultants. Make sure I'm in your contacts list. We'll show you what the March inspections have yielded, where they went, where the IOIs have been dropping warnings and revocation notices, and where those issues have been concluding. Again, the report that we published shows you what has concluded, meaning gone through the entire process once the ATF realizes they want to revoke your license or issue a warning. There's a very judicial process. It's not a 1 week or 2 week issue, but as soon as it closes, those issues get reported on the ATF monthly inspection report. So there's a lot in process that you don't see yet on the report, just giving you a heads up. But as this year progresses, I'm sure those numbers are going to increase quickly. again, we'll send those out to you. JC, why don't you talk a little bit about forced reset triggers?
All right, force reset triggers. So there was an open letter that was just released regarding the force reset triggers and the fact that they are considered machine guns. Just be aware of that. All of our pawn brokers that are on the call today, you need to make sure that you're asking questions when somebody is pawning, especially an AR platform rifle or an AR platform pistol, just to make sure that, just simply ask them, have you made any modifications or dropped in a new trigger system, fire control element, and see what they have to say. If they say no, you're probably good to go. My speculation is right now, obviously the open letter has said, contact your local ATF field division, etc. I would also reach out to, if you've purchased these, I would reach out to the manufacturer and see if they're doing a recall or bringing these items back in and reimbursing you for that. Typically, that's what happens in these scenarios is they allow the manufacturer to go ahead and recall to facilitate the destruction of the items. You can't mark them because you're not the manufacturer of them, and you can't register them because you're not the manufacturer of them. So that Form 1 or Form 2 will be denied. So just pay attention, see if you have any, especially pawnbrokers, but if you have any of them for sale in your shops, you'll need to reach out to the manufacturer just to see what's going on.
Okay. All right, next up is the E-Form 4 training. We get a lot of questions, but we realized rather than us try to do the training, which we have been with you one-on-one or with your teams, you can actually go out to YouTube now. You can just simply type into the YouTube search bar, ATF E-Form 4 tutorial. And they've been kind enough to make that available to all of you. It's 31 minutes long. It's actually pretty good detail. I'm not going to talk about the production of the video, but go out there if you guys are challenged with signing on and starting to use the E-Form process. And as you heard from Seth, some of these, the form is absolutely sped up the program. Instead of 8 months to a year, we hear some folks getting their approvals and the Form 4s returned within even a month.
Yep.
I don't want to say 3 or 4 weeks. I heard one instance of that. But if you can get a month and get it down to a month or two, it's a much better selling program for your customers and much easier on you.
Yeah. The goal is 90 days. So just when you're conveying that to your customer, just tell them the ATF goal is 90 days. It could be sooner, but the goal is 90 days.
Yep. Okay. All right. All right, JC, how about the regulatory updates here?
So regulatory updates, obviously arm braces. I believe we've put the factoring criteria on the website, but if not, expect it to be out there. We can also forward it on to you and send you a link. Just email us, let us know that you're looking for it, and we can certainly get that over to you. It's a 4-point system. There's a number of criteria that you have to walk through. I've reviewed the entire document. I can tell you it's a pretty easy process to make the determination, but obviously, if you have questions, reach out. We'll be happy to help you with that. As far as the arm braces are concerned, basically, I think your best option is if it doesn't fall within the factoring criteria, is to make a modification to get that arm brace removed. So, it's no one brand, no one model. There's a number of items on there that you need to take a look at. So take a look at that factoring criteria document and see what you come up with. Ghost guns, personally manufactured firearms. We're still waiting on some guidance on this. We're anticipating it in June. The guidance, I would tell you, I'm very interested to see what direction they go with this, because originally when they were pulling this together and trying to figure out what to do, they reached out to type 1 and type 2s, which was interesting to me because they typically type 1 and type 2 FFLs don't have the equipment or capabilities to mark firearms. It's unusual for them because they don't manufacture firearms. Interested to see if, since it's a personally manufactured firearm, are you going to want me to put my name and city and state and assign a serial number to the firearm? Or are you going to want an FFL to put their name? It's going to be very interesting. So stay tuned for that. I anticipate it in June.
JC, yeah, we had some questions. So the fact, to your point, the factoring worksheet, as we call it, from the ATF is available on our, just go to our website, fflconsultants.com. And at the bottom there, you can select among many things that are available to you, but just download that document so that you can start to prepare. We had a couple, we do a lot of these types of conference Zooms for other parts of the industry, but we had the pawnbrokers on, and they're concerned about folks coming in with guns to pawn, and how should they start going about this, say next month or in May and June, as this regulatory guidance comes down. So they're using it as an educational tool to start to understand, if and when this is going to take place, when the regulation will drop, and when will you be notified. And typically you get those letters that say effective immediately, or effective very soon. You don't want to get stuck with guns in stock that don't meet compliance regulations. So the other issue is these ghost guns. We've had a lot of folks calling in asking about how to inscribe and how to mark their guns now to stay ahead and stay legal, and we just don't have those answers.
Yeah.
We will, as JC said, issue any guidance as we get it, even if it's before our next scheduled Zoom. We'll go ahead and get alerts out to you guys as well. JC, back to E-Form, I had a question for you.
Sure, shoot.
Can the E-Form 4 be used for a firearms trust?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Cool.
It's no different than the paper process. So all of the same criteria is needed to be met. So no,
Yep.
You can do trust.
And Mark and others, if you have more questions on that, please stay tuned to the end, and we'll be able to elaborate on that. Thank you. Okay. The deadly sins, guys, Biden's top 5, ATF's 5 deadly sins, as they've been nicknamed by industry participants. We can't talk enough about this. We love you guys. There's over 80 of you on today. The crowd is usually big on these events, but JC and I continue to visit gun dealers around America, and we continue to find the issues, and we're just trying to get you guys ahead of them. There's only 2 of us traveling, and there's 50,000 gun dealers. Hopefully you can share the good news, but these are the top 5, and we're going to talk about more specifics. But again, just to know them, if you want to take a screenshot of this, great, share with your team. But 1, transferring a firearm to a prohibited person. That means anyone, and you'll hear in a little bit about this, somebody who hasn't finished section 21A, or 21 rather. If they left the question blank in section 21, that person has not fully applied for that transfer, and that has not fully complied with the requirement for a background check. Those prohibited questions take up or fill the gap between what's reliant in the NICS, FBI, or state-run databases, because they are not full, they're not 100% accurate. They rely on those questions on your 4473 to complement the electronic background check. So don't, if you're missing a section 21 question not checked, unfortunately that can be deemed an incomplete application, and therefore a transfer to a possible prohibited person. Because at the time you made that transfer, you were not 100% sure that that person was non-prohibited through their own admission. That's a big scary one that we're just starting to talk about, because we're seeing that more and more. You're missing a question or a meeting. I turned a page the other day out of one of our FFLs. I turned the page and went to page 2 of 20 for the section 21, and none of the questions were checked for some reason, whatever reason. When you have thousands of these forms being processed annually, there's human error involved, and we miss some of these boxes. And it's scary. So the failing to run a required background check, just failing to process NICS correctly, failing to have an ID present, a valid ID. You can have an ID, but if it's expired, it's like not being there at all. Same thing with the exemption on CCWs if your state honors them. If you have an expired CCW being used in lieu of a background check, if it's expired, it's like not having any background check done at all. Falsifying any records, such as firearm transactions. We're getting a lot of calls, guys, from all of you, and you know who you are, who call a lot. Maybe you've called once in the last month or once last week, but the bottom line is we cannot direct you, and would not direct you, obviously, to falsify or fill in a box that may have been left blank by a customer. Even if it's a height and weight type of issue, or gender, or you filled in ID number, but you didn't figure out what type of ID it was, or maybe you took an alternate proof of residency on 26B, but you didn't get the permit number or the VIN number on a document. You can't make this stuff up when you go to correct and fine tune your forms, because that would fall under this item 3, which is falsifying any records. You can't just plug in dates in your disposition side of your book, your bound book, without checking and verifying the actual dates. Make sure they all align, because the ATF is looking for the details now more so than they ever have before. Falsifying is a very big bucket. Be careful there. Failing to respond to an ATF tracing request, we can't, we talk about this every month. 24 hours is the expected response rate, response time. If you're closed on Monday, you're not expected to answer a trace on Monday. A lot of you are closed on Mondays or Sundays. You're expected to respond to those traces during your scheduled business hours, as documented on your ATF license application, your original ATF license application. If you've updated your hours, if you changed your days you work, if you're a home-based dealer with this type of issue, make sure you are updating your hours of operation with the ATF tracing, licensing and endo tracing center. And then lastly, refusing to permit ATF entry. Obviously, we never want to deny an ATF agent, inspector, or investigator access to your records. We're not talking just about a randomly announced inspection. We're talking about anytime the ATF shows up even to request to look at 14473. There's no reason to call us to get approval or call your attorney to get approval. You just let the ATF agent have access. But if you have questions, obviously, we're always available to support you. Okay. Other willful violations. All right. These are just the others, guys, that can be somehow tied into or construed into those top 5 we talked about, especially if you've had warning violations before, or if you've had an inspection before, which most of you have, and there have been items notified or directed for improvement on your prior visit documents. It doesn't mean you had a warning the last time around. It could have been just a closing conference with a short list of things to improve with. That short list is going to be surfaced and re-examined the next time the ATF inspector walks in. So again, whether it be just a closing conference with some bullet points or a warning that you had prior, make sure you are not in violation of any of those reoccurrences. But here's the other ones: not accounting for firearms, not reporting thefts timely. God forbid the ATF walks in and finds guns missing that you didn't let them know about. That is a bad thing. Got questions on that, give us a ring. How to manage it during an inventory when you're missing some items, give us a ring. We'll walk you through the proper process that will not initiate an inspection and which will not get you in trouble if the ATF inspector walks in. Not verifying documented buyer eligibility. This is all about IDs. We talked about driver's licenses, in-state, out-of-state, that type of thing. A lot of military purchases are somewhat confusing if you're not totally tied into the exact process. You got a one-off military purchase or law enforcement purchase, give us a call. We'll walk you through those simple steps very quickly. Not maintaining records, any bound book issues, missing information or incorrect information. It's all got to be there upon review. Someone asked earlier today, what happens if they fix it during an inspection? Well, that's called reconciling. But those items that an ATF inspector will be fixing once they show up to do the random inspection, it's called a reconciled error. It's not as bad as, for example, trying to find a firearm. You find that a firearm was sold last month. It was a second firearm maybe added to a delay 4473, and we just forgot to dispose it properly. As long as you can find out where that gun or when that gun was disposed, that's called a reconciled disposition. It will be noted as such, versus we can't find a gun at all, which is an unreconciled issue, which could turn into a bigger boo-boo. We don't want to do that. And then accepting expired IDs or CCWs. We just talked about that quickly, but make sure those are all valid and issued by a government agency.
All right, let's talk about case study number 1. So this is a notice of revocation scenario. and it very much has to do with some of the stuff JB just covered. Southeast FFL contacted us, real different situation. A bunch of family members running a business. One of the family members ended up taking over or getting more involved in the business and started taking a look at things. And then all of a sudden receives an inspection from the ATF. They show up and he's never been through it before because he's never really been involved in the business previously. Come to find out, as he's going through processes and such, he reaches out to us. He does a search on Google and ATF inspection, our information pops up. So he gives us a call to say, basically, I've never been through this before. What should I expect? I said, well, tell me about previous inspections. He was like, well, we've only had one other inspection I'm aware of. And we just received a paragraph from the IOI that said everything was good. I was like, oh, okay, no problem. A couple months passes and all of a sudden the FFL receives a notice of revocation. I said, okay, well, let's take a look at what's going on here. We review the notice of revocation and I asked him, I was like, do me a favor and dig up whatever email you got or whatever information you got from the ATF from your last inspection. And lo and behold, there was a warning letter. It wasn't just a simple paragraph saying everything was all right. It was a couple pages telling them everything wasn't all right and that they had some stuff to work on and to be aware that they would be re-inspected in 12 months. In this situation, zero tolerance means zero tolerance. They had two violations that fell into the 5 deadly sins. And as a result, that's where the notice of revocation came from. This is one of the, I think, first 3 to 5 that we've been working on. And I will tell you, we put together a pretty comprehensive compliance action plan. We've developed policies, procedures, and programs in the store as far as transacting firearm from receipt to transfer. We've reorged. We've helped them hire a compliance person who is sole responsibility is to validate and verify 4473s and acquisition dispositions and inventory. And thus far, we've gone through an informal hearing with the ATF, provided him a very thick packet of all the steps that the FFL has taken to remediate and mitigate all of the issues. We've actually restructured the organization as well. And we're all pretty much on pins and needles waiting to find out whether or not the ATF will approve this FFL maintaining their license. As of last week, we were still waiting to hear. It's going to be an interesting one. I feel pretty confident, but we just don't know. And that's true with all of the ones we're doing right now. These are all basically case studies to figure out what's going to work in the event that you receive a notice of revocation.
Yeah, JC, let me reiterate for the audience that this is not, we keep talking about the ATF, but this is the Biden administration. This is the Attorney General's office overseeing these decisions that the ATF otherwise would have been making in the past. Your DIOs would have had the leniency, discretion, latitude, decision-making powers to determine based on interactions we've had and you've had, and these hearings that we've been going to, they would have had discretion. Unfortunately, today everything, am I correct, JC, has to go through Washington?
Yep, absolutely. Everything goes up to Washington for approval, and they will push down. And we've had it happen at a number of field divisions where the field division, the DIO, has pushed up that, hey, we're going to do a warning conference or a warning letter on this. And they've received word back down, nope, you will be revoking that license. So it's out of their hands. They're frustrated with it. It is what it is. So
before we go to case 2, JC, a couple of quick questions. How long do we have to get a responsible person on site for an inspection?
Say that again, sorry.
How long do we have to get a responsible person on site for an inspection if the ATF shows up?
Generally speaking, if you're not there or you're on vacation, just let them know. Obviously you want to get there as soon as possible. They'll only talk to you. I have an FFL going through an inspection right now. The responsible person has COVID. Not anything serious, but he doesn't want to be in the store and infect his employees or the IOIs. So they've been doing everything over the phone. So generally speaking, you definitely want to be there at some point. Talk to them about your scenario, but there's not really any period of time per regulation. It's just a matter of you're accessible.
Yeah, and the big issue is you gotta worry about who they're going to be talking to and what questions they're going to be asking and what answers are going to be provided by your staff and team. I suggest that if the responsible person or one of the responsible persons try to stay present during the inspection process. Yeah. Next question: what about COVID-related extensions extensions of expirations on IDs and FOID cards, respective to Illinois?
Yeah, most of that is expired now. People have access. I would tell you, and this is what we tell all of our FFLs that we support, make sure you're keeping a copy of those extensions, whether you print it off the website or if they issued some sort of letter. Make sure you're maintaining a copy of that and you get your hands on it very quickly and easily in the event of an inspection. And ensure that in those situations where you accepted that document as an extension and as an exception to the rule, that the dates fall within the parameters of that extension. We have had multiple situations where a gun was transferred and that extension expired, and all of a sudden the FFL scrambling to get that gun back because they didn't transact it properly. So you want to make sure that if you use that extension or that exception in transferring a firearm, that you're falling within that time frame of that exception.
Yeah. Now for all the past issues, I mean, the past transfers, obviously there were expiration dates on these publications or exceptions. But if you're in any of the states now that had any of the exceptions on IDs, make sure you check with your state state offices, your DMV offices on any of those extensions, because like JC said, I believe they're all expired at this point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and with Illinois, just check with ISP. Just go to their website, and I think there's some alerts right at the top of the website explaining some of these.
Yeah,
and they're pretty good responding. So send them an email too. Here's one, JC. An ATF. I love these questions. My ATF guy told me that anyone who carries a personal firearm must have it labeled "not for sale" while we have it on premises.
If it's on their personal body, you do not need to mark it. If it's a personal firearm being stored on site, I would just tell you to get a little tag that says personally owned firearm and who owns it. Not, do not inventory or not an inventory personally owned firearm and whoever owns it. If it's on your person, it does not have to be labeled or marked.
Right. That's the exception, on your person. If you have them anywhere else, I was in an office last week. I was doing my inspection in the owner's office. I said, "Who's three long guns standing in the corner?" I said, "And whose guns are those?" And he kind of chuckled and says, "Well, they're mine." I go, "Not according to the ATF. They should be in your book. They're on your licensed premises. They're not labeled properly. They would be included in a count if the inspectors walked in and talked to these today as unlabeled firearms. You must segregate and label personal firearms stored on a licensed premises." Same thing with the display items. If you've got personal archives, artifacts, collector items up on the shelves or in showcases or whatever, or even simply in your office, make sure the label that's on some part of that firearm needs a little label that says personal property of. And they're very, very sticky on this. And again, with all of the regulations that you're being challenged with right now, look at the details and get those corrected. Okay, great question. All right, let's go to case. Keep the questions coming, guys. Just use the chat room. And case study number 2 is over in the Midwest. We've been talking about this one. It's concluded, so I'll tell you all about it. It's in the Midwest. FFL had 2 licenses actually for 3 years, a type 1 and type 7. The prior inspection, nope. All he had was his initial ATF IOI review and training day when they were issued the licenses. They came in, did the training, the 3-4 hours, handed over a lot of documents, said, "Good luck, sign here, we're leaving." They've had no warnings since, no warnings on any inspections, no inspections. no issues. Well, they got inspected in October, which finalized in December with a closing conference that read verb and which the IOI directed said, I'm going to recommend that your licenses get revoked. Again, I think I've talked about this. We've never had IOIs actually stand up and say that at the end of a closing conference. They usually typically go over to report of violations and issues identified and issues to correct and work on. But it was from the closing conference, we knew this was going to be bad. Long story short, yes, they had minor errors. They had a lot of them, but minor. None of the big five, except for two. The big five sins, we've been referred to. They accidentally transferred 2 firearms to denied persons. To prohibited persons. And the way that occurred was they're a high volume transferee. They have layaway. There's a lot of issues with the state of Illinois and delays and investigations. The state police do all of their background checks. So they accidentally, in checking their morning process, accidentally checking their updates and pulling all their layaways and delays, they accidentally checked the wrong boxes on 2 4473s and made them proceeds instead of denials. It's that simple. 2, accidentally, no willful negligence. Even though they had the documentation and they said we accidentally did this, we didn't mean to do it. What does willful negligence mean anyway? It was not willful, was not criminal. And in both cases, here's the saddest part. In both cases, they recovered the guns. They contacted the customers, said, please bring your guns back. We made a mistake in your paperwork. They retrieved the firearms. So there was no public safety issue thereafter. The firearms are resold and transferred to other lawful citizens. Well, because those 2 mistakes were made in the past and were self-reported to the ATF prior to the inspection, again, prior to the inspection, their license was upheld as a revocation. They received a notice to revoke. We've been working with attorneys. Thankfully, they were an NSSF premium member. Their expenses were all covered. And I can't tell you how hard we've worked to retain these licenses for this business. But in the end, we went to what we call Plan B, is surrender the license, not have it revoked, surrender it before revocation. But all of this takes attorneys. All of this takes compromise and discussion with the ATF. And we don't recommend any of you try this individually. It's attorneys talking to attorneys, basically. And in the end, there was an agreement to surrender without any formal revocation documented. But unfortunately, the business has to be sold and or transferred. The firearms have to be sold and or transferred. The owner or previous responsible person and owner cannot have anything to do with this business in the future. And this is a very sad closing, but this is, we think, predictive of what's going to happen based on Washington and based on what we've been hearing about. And I'm going to call on somebody after the next case study. We're going to call on someone who's going through an inspection now to hear their scenario. But this is real stuff. Again, stay tuned with us. We'll give you the what to do's now and how to avoid this scenario for your FFL.
All right, so case study number 3. This one actually just came in the latter part of last week. 9-year FFL has had prior inspections with no issues, none whatsoever. Actually has a very good relationship with their IOI, has a very good relationship with the ATF, etc. Unfortunately, this last inspection resulted in 8 violations, and there they are, 5 deadly sins, right? Failure to initiate a new NICS check, failure to retain a 4473, failure to obtain a completed 4473. If it's not completed, and not completed means not completed. If there's a required block that needs to be filled out and it wasn't completed, that form is incomplete and is actually a violation. So failure to verify or record ID document, I gotta tell you, should be the first thing that you ask for in a transaction. Is even before the customer looks at the firearm, it should be something that you're obtaining from them and asking a couple of questions. A firearms transaction takes some time. So you want to make sure that all the ducks are in a row before you even start the process. And that one thing that you can do is grab that ID and ask that customer, is your address correct on the ID? Make sure that it's still valid. Make sure it's not expired. I can't tell you how many times we run into that and get phone calls. I have a customer who has an expired ID. Can I accept it? No, it's expired. It's not worth the paper it's printed on unless it's been renewed. So keep that in mind. We're going to start working with them. Unfortunately, you call me on a Thursday or Friday and you have a hearing 2 weeks. We've got to scramble. So we need to know how things are going beforehand if you want our help. So
yeah, thanks, JC. Larry, if you're available, get ready. We're going to talk to you in a minute. But JC, a couple quick questions. Do personal firearms have to be entered into an A&E book or just tagged as personal firearms not for sale?
They just need to be tagged.
Yeah, we do recommend, if you got more than a couple guns, keep a separate list in your desk drawer or something of all the guns you have in your store, just in case there's a burglary in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And those guns get stolen as well.
Yeah,
we'd have to figure that out. Let's keep. Are there any brands, models, examples of FRTs?
Rare breed is probably the bigger one. I think there's only a handful of them out there. You can certainly do a Google search. There's Watt, there's Rare Breed. I'm trying to think of a couple other names. There's not very many manufacturers of these, and typically they're the same manufacturers that are involved in what are called binary triggers. So
yep. Okay, so there's a question here about how to make corrections after the transfer. We're going to hit that after the slides finish, just for the sake of time, so stay with us on that, whoever asked that question. Had an FFL for 8 years, no inspections. When we do get an inspection, will they actually go through all 8 years?
They can go back to the period of the last inspection, but typically they're only going to go over the last 12 months.
Okay. All right. Hey, Terry, also known as Larry, are you available to talk with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. We're gonna go by Larry. Hey, Larry, give us an idea of what's going on with your inspection right now. When did it start, and what challenges are you facing?
It started last Tuesday. We did 2 days of inventory, and we had a couple of items that there was a little confusion on, but we found it, and all of our firearms are accounted for. And I was actually scheduled for surgery, minor surgery on the day after, but it became obvious that they wouldn't delay it, their inspection, so I had to cancel that. They've been going through the 4473s. There's about 1,000 of them for the last year, and a couple of minor, what I call minor mistakes that we were able to rectify. And one of the 4473s is missing the questions on page 2. They were not checked. And I understand that's a bad one. The person did clear the background check, but I'm getting the feeling that this investigator is going for my license.
How can you tell?
Attitude, suggestion that I could give up my license from him, and just attitude.
Yeah. And Larry, when was the last time you were inspected?
This business has not been inspected. I've been in business for 5 years. Now, I also have a Missouri license. That license has been inspected, I think 4 or 5 times. This inspection is completely and totally different.
Yeah, so you have a license in Illinois and in Missouri because you do gun shows over in the other states. So yeah, so without getting detailed, because I'm afraid we might always have an ATF person listening in, hopefully not, but we keep our discussions discreet. But this person is insinuating, without getting too detailed, that you're doing things wrong that you and I have already discussed are not actually incorrect, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. and we're going to get more into the detail. I'll call you at 2 o'clock your time today. But the issue is the ATF inspector is making up their own rules. JC, you have a great terminology for this. What is the
Code of IOI regulations?
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah,
knows
so-
where they came from. Nobody knows how they came to be, but boy, they like to fall back on making up their own rules.
Yeah. So
Well,
we'll work with Larry on rectifying that with the Washington office of the ATF so that this inspector doesn't go too fast down the wrong road and make any incorrect conclusions. That's the type of stuff we do. Larry, thank you for joining us. Good luck. We'll get you through this. And thanks for being
I
on
have
NSS.
one other statement.
Sure.
And we briefly talked about it. We have an Illinois business. We go to gun shows in Missouri. At those gun shows, we take transfers from typically Missouri FFLs. We bring those guns back to Illinois ourselves, and we do transfers to the individual. Illinois has a waiting period. We do the background check via the state of Illinois' background system. I'm being told I cannot do that because those firearms must be transferred from Missouri to Illinois via a common carrier. And if that's the case, that will probably take a third of my business away.
Yeah. And we're going to get more into the detail on that and the specifics, but for the sake of time, Larry, it sounds like you're doing everything right according to the gun show guidelines. Now whether or not you're acquiring guns on behalf of other FFLs in Missouri that are sold to Illinois residents, that is a different issue. But if you're buying guns from FFLs in Missouri at the gun show for resale over in your shop and through your business, that's permittable. But let's sort out the details in about an hour when we talk. So,
Thank you.
All right. But thanks for joining us. And gang, that's what we're all here for, is you have questions like that. That's why you call us, and that's why you join us. And if you got questions, throw them in that chat. Let's keep going. For the sake of time, make sure you're checking your last report. We've talked a lot about this. What status are you in? And what was that last visit closing conference like? Make sure you don't have any reoccurrences of that, whether they be majors or minor violations or warnings or just closing conference summaries. God forbid you do get inspected in the next 6 months. Hopefully not before the midterm elections, and maybe we get some of this legislation changed. Please call us. Don't call us. I'm sorry to pick on Larry, but he called me today and he started getting inspected last week. So call us on day one, get us involved. We don't care if you're an SSF member or not. We'll help you through it. We'll give you the do's, the don'ts. We'll give you daily support. We'll help you monitor your progress, add clarifications where necessary. And if you are an NSSF member, we'll be able to collaborate with you and sit in and hopefully mitigate some of that closing conference process that you will all have to go through. If you're a premier member, then you obviously have all of our legal defense fund protection as well. JC, get this?
Absolutely. So, all right, here we go. Number one, if you haven't been inspected in a few years, 3 to 5 years, you're approaching renewal, maybe you've applied for a new license, you have a very good chance of being inspected. We've seen that a lot. A number of FFLs that we support are opening additional locations or creating warehousing environments or whatnot, and they're seeing inspection lift. Previously issued a warning, whether it be a warning letter or warning conference, you are susceptible to inspection within 12 months or 12 months out. Typically it's 12 to 18 months. If you received a virtual, if you're a new FFL and you received what's called a virtual compliance inspection for your issuance of your FFL, you will be required to be inspected within 12 months. Time to crime traces. Any trace requests that you get and that transaction occurred within 3 years from the time of the crime to the sale of that firearm, you might hit on the list of an FFL that's going to be inspected. Excessive denials. They want to make sure that if you're seeing a high volume of denieds, that means you may be susceptible to straw purchases. So make sure you've got your don't lie program in place and your employees know to ask the right questions. Get out to, we'll talk about the training sessions that we're holding around the country here shortly. Get out to those. We're teaching people straw purchase prevention techniques all the time. Reach out to us and we can get you some help with that. Make sure you're qualifying your customers. That's the biggest thing. Ask questions. You as an FFL have that right. Keep in mind that, law enforcement, especially those of you that are in these violent crime areas, such as Chicago and some of the major cities, they're really focusing on gun shops in these areas to determine whether or not you all are involved in the sale of firearms to any of the individuals involved in these crimes. So excessive theft loss reported, even one gun. We had one gun stolen in transit and with an FFL that we support, and it instigated an inspection. So keep that in mind. The days that they used to come out and just help you fill out the paperwork are gone. They are going to do an inspection anytime a firearm's been stolen. So you need to make sure you're buttoned up, ready to go.
All right, a couple more, and then we'll get to questions. 7 must-dos for FFLs. Another one, this is our preventative program, guys. Qualify every firearm. Make sure your background checks are all valid. We talked about IDs. Don't transfer to a prohibited person, even by accident. And remember that paperwork, the 4473 prohibited questions section accounts for at least 15% of that complete background check. ATF, FBI, state POCs, the databases are only 85% accurate as best, and they're relying on that 4473 to fill that gap. Make sure it's complete and accurate. Transfer the right gun, always within 30 days. Double check that 4473. And stay tuned with us. We'll talk about how to correct those if you find a mistake after the transfer is corrected. Respond to your traces. Conduct that steal inventory. Take the inventory off the gun, not off the box, not off a label, not off a hang tag. And make sure you print and retain those background check documents for your records. Should anybody self-report, JC? We've talked about this in the past.
Hey, listen, we love the ATF. We do, work with them pretty closely, especially as it relates to training. And we look to them to support us. Look, I would tell you this. I'm not going to tell you not to self-disclose or self-report to the ATF. What I would tell you to do is call us first. Don't take the risk. Your IOIs are great people. The vast majority of them are very helpful. But on the other hand, you calling them and asking them a question, now you might be on their target list. They may be saying, oh, really? That's not the way it should be done. If you use us and we call the field division, we just say, hey, we have a client. How do you want me to handle it? So remember, we're here to help you. Call us first to determine your risk. We talked about it earlier. We already have an FFL that did self-disclose, and lo and behold, it instigated an inspection, and those self-disclosures are actually listed on their violations. So, just be aware of that. You take the risk. I hear it all the time. Oh, I have a great relationship with my OI. You just really need to be careful right now.
Yeah, I talked to a DIO last week on a different issue, and I asked him all about this issue, and he's in another office. I asked him about what happened with this one client about self-disclosure, self-reporting, and he said, do me a favor, John. He goes, don't call me, quote unquote. So meaning don't self-report. So I don't think they may not have options if you self-disclose issues. So I think I was reading between the lines on that conversation, but it was very worthwhile.
Yeah.
All right, guys, here we are. This is where we'll be. If you haven't registered, this is a great training days. This information is right out on our website. Just go to the bottom of our website. You'll see how to register, how to get your email request in for a seat at these events. They've been great. We concluded 3 over the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
3 events across the country. We're doing the rest through the end of July.
Yeah.
Here they are. If you can get to them or haven't already registered for a seat, they're free. They're 4 hours. They're sponsored by Cabela's Bass Pro. Again, great sponsors for the firearms industry. Just go to our website, find out more information about that. Come see us. and get some great free training. And it's always fun to see the questions that the ATF gets regarding the zero tolerance program.
Yep.
Watch
Remember,
them
seats
fly.
are limited at these events, so you want to
Yep.
register as soon as possible.
Yeah, all of them are full houses. Yep.
Yep.
Just quickly, if you're an NSSF member, thank you very much. If you're a regular member thinking about upgrading to get the legal defense fund, just give us a call. There's so many benefits to that, but more important than anything else, it's the legal defense fund and our one-on-one support with our attorneys if you get in trouble. Again, you could join for 1 year and go back to your regular membership afterwards. If you're worried about the next year, worried about your paperwork, just give us a call. We'll walk you through everything, send you all the information. This is JC and I just crazy busy with these visits across the country. And if you're not a member at all, give us a ring. We'll tell you why you should be a member. And again, NSSF is a proud sponsor and owner of SHOT Show. Here's where we're going. And over the next few months, if we're coming to a town near you, you need a visit, please get in touch with us. We can usually squeeze a visit in if we're already flying to the city. But unfortunately, we can't, our flights are already booked to a lot of these locations. If we got extra days, or we can change some travel flights, then we can squeeze you in for a mock audit review. Again, just you'll get this obviously sent to you, so you'll take a screenshot of that if you want, or just give us a call and find out where we're going. And let's go for questions, JC. A couple here. Just to clarify, Skip. Skip says if I'm an FFL pickup or purchase guns in another state, can I just transfer them to my home state?
Absolutely. As an FFL, you just you acquire the firearms just as you would in any other scenario.
Yeah, but this whole gun show thing's a little different. If you're at a gun show and you're in a booth next to, if you're allowed to display your firearms in another state other than where you're licensed.
Yep.
You just can't sell or transact.
Exactly.
So you can carry your guns back to your state and have that customer come visit you if they're a local resident for handguns or an authorized long gun state resident. So there's a little detail there, but you can pick up guns across. I know a gun dealer he actually still does it. He drives across country visiting pawnbrokers and different locations where he just knows he can get great deals on used guns, loads them in his trunk, probably hits 4 or 5 states and takes them back to his licensed state location and sells them.
Yep. You as an FFL can purchase a gun anywhere. Just
Yeah.
put it, you properly acquire it.
Yeah. JC, run through the correcting a 4473 post transfer.
All right, if you've identified something post transfer, and obviously if it's one of the sections that you as the transfer seller has approval and ability to correct, you will make a photocopy of the page the error occurred on, and you will line out, single line, strike through the error and make the correction, initial and date it on the date the correction is being made. If it's a customer section, that's sections B and D, the customer needs to come back to the store. You need to make a photocopy of whatever page the errors are on and have them do the same. Strike through the error, line through it, single line, initial and date it on the date that the correction was made. Remember, the corrections are made on the photocopy. The photocopy then gets attached to the 4473.
And that correction method is better than not correcting it at all.
Exactly.
We can't guarantee that that's going to be acceptable or negate an incorrect transfer or an illicit transfer, or one of the top 5 we've been talking about, but at least you'll have the correction made before the ATF inspector shows up to point it out to you.
And depending on the error, if it falls into one of 5 deadly sins, I can walk you through that process really quick. But here's the deal. Just pick up the phone and call us.
Right.
We'll tell you what to do. Chances are we're going to have you reacquire that firearm and retransact it. So there's a number of different scenarios that happens in. So just reach out to us and we can help you with that.
Question, we would like to get assistance with factoring questions for frames receivers and braces in future meetings. We are unsure what many of the questions are asking. Let's go ahead and plan that for next month, JC. We can easily dig into the details on that, and we'll be closer to any regulatory updates and decisions on that topic.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, and why don't you send us the questions you're having difficulty with so we can prep for that for next month's session.
Yeah. For anybody who's looking to leave the webinar right now, we are scheduled for May 16th. May 16th will be our next event. Just put it on your calendar. And you'll get an invite, obviously. Make sure you go out to our site and register for those seats. JC, here's another one. We're applying for a new FFL and switching over to digital 4473s and send all old 4473s back to ATF. Can they do inspections on closed FFLs?
No, but that could instigate an inspection before you close out your other FFL. No, once you send your records to the out of office business center, nobody has time to go through an inspection and check those. But it may instigate an inspection of your current FFL.
Yeah, a lot of folks ask us that question. We've been to the tracing center and the records, it's a record retention center. There's no way they're going to have anybody sit and go through your old records once you send them in. The only time they'll ever see them and maybe catch an issue is if they ever pull any of those 4473s for a trace. Okay. Next one, should firearms be transferred according to the Brady law or only after a hard proceed?
That depends on your state as well as your in-store policy. We do have a number of FFLs that we support that are larger FFLs that have a hard stance that they do not transfer a firearm unless they actually receive a proceed.
Yeah,
but it all depends on your state and the state law. So, and every state is a little bit different. So,
yeah, our big box clients won't transfer on a delay Brady date release, just for that reason, for liability. They have so many stores, they can't trust that every employee is going to do it right. So they have some hard policies. It might be your neighboring Academy of Bass Pro Sportsman's Warehouse, but they do it for liability reasons, not for any other state requirement. Do FFLs get notified prior to inspections?
Yeah, that all depends. If you're an outlier, 3-4 hours away from a field office, you might actually get a phone call asking if you're going to be around. It's unusual. They actually have to seek approval from their area supervisor to reach out to you prior to an inspection. Sometimes they'll call and say, we're going to be there on Monday. And it's, Friday. So, or, they'll call on a Thursday and say, we're going to stop in tomorrow and initiate an inspection, just to make sure the RP is going to be available.
Yeah, and that's when you want to call us. If you're getting any advance notification, that's when you call us, not when they show up. And we're getting a lot of home-based dealers getting these advanced notifications, especially folks in remote areas where the ATF doesn't want to drive and find a locked door. They want to find you open.
Yep.
I'll take this one. This video recorded for later view and other employees. How can I retrieve this video? The answer is always yes. We make sure you have our website, our email address, jb@fflconsultants.com in your contacts list. Otherwise, check your spam folder. We do send these out within a few days after the broadcast. In this case, it's not going out till at least Friday when we get back in the office. And you can always find us on YouTube at FFLconsultants.com. Just go out there, subscribe to our channel. You'll get notice from YouTube whenever we publish the updates and make them available to you. So thank you for asking. Got it, Anna. Please explain when to use Form 3310.12.
3310.12 is the report of multiple sale or other disposition of certain rifles. I had a phone call, I think last week. Somebody asked me, well, what about shotguns? Well, a shotgun's not a rifle. So no, you don't have to report that. Report of multiple sale or other disposition of certain rifles only pertains to those border states. That is Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. Only those 4 states are required to submit this.
Southern border.
Yep. Border, the Mexico, U.S. border. You are required to submit these just like the 3310.4 by the end of the business day that the multiple sale occurred on. By the end of the business day that the multiple sale occurred on, not the next day, not at the end of the week. So make sure you're doing that. This form refers to specifically any transaction with an unlicensed person, 2 or more semi-automatic, again, rifles, semi-automatic rifles, larger than 22 caliber. That includes 223 and 5.56 calibers, with the ability to accept a detachable magazine. It has to meet all of those elements. If that firearm meets those elements, then you are to report a multiple sale scenario. So in other words, 2 ARs. Doesn't matter if it's a 22 caliber or a 308, you have to report it, right?
Well, 22, no, 223, yes,
Nope, larger than 22 caliber.
right. Yeah, so the Smith & Wesson 22 AR doesn't have to be.
Right.
Right, okay. So, okay, how about the occurrence, John, of an error before the transfer? How do you, that correction simply on the original form?
Yep.
Initial and dated, guys. We see a
Yeah,
lot of
initial and
forms that are
dated.
initial but not dated. On the
Exactly.
original form, if the transfer has not been completed, there's no date in box 36. You can initial and date any, either you or the customer can initial any change to that form on the original form prior to the transfer being completed. After the transfer is completed, you got to move to the copy of the page in question.
Right.
All right. Does an FFL have to enter privately transferred firearms into the A&D book? I think we had that.
Depends. Are you facilitating private transfer or are you selling your own personal firearms to someone else? So I would tell you if you're facilitating a private transfer and they're filling out a 4473, then yes. If you're just selling your own personal firearms and you're not doing it through your FFL, then no, you don't, as long as it's allowed by state law. I would tell you this, if you're transferring personal firearms, make sure that you own those for at least a period of 1 year, 12 months before you resell that firearm.
Yep. Just to elaborate a little more on the correction piece I just spoke to, how do you make the correction? It's one single line through the incorrect information, and you simply write in with a pen, black or blue, write in the correct information adjacent to that space where the error was completed. Sometimes you have to squeeze it in. Sometimes you have to put a little arrow to where they, maybe it's a model, and we just don't want to see scribbles. The ATF always wants to see what information was there before versus what it was corrected to. And never use whiteout. Never ever use whiteout. If the correction is being made same day with the customer present before firearm is handed over, does it still need to be done on a copy or of the original? I think we just answered that question.
On the original.
On the original. Again, if there's no date in box 36, if the gun has not been transferred, even if it's on a delay in recertification and the customer comes in a little bit later, a couple days later, if the gun's still in your possession, you can make the correction on the original 4473.
Yep.
Here you go, JC. What if the FFLRP is out of town and the ATF shows up to do an inspection?
If you're running a gun shop, you have employees, chances are really good that they're going to go ahead and communicate with you by phone and conduct the inspection anyway. But if you're on vacation and you're the only person, or you and your wife are the only two people that run the store, well, there's not much they can do. You're not refusing. You know, they're going to call you. You're going to let them know, hey, I'm sorry, I'm on vacation. I'm not anywhere near the store. Unlikely they're going to tell you to come back so they can do the inspection. They'll probably just say, okay, and ask you for the date you're going to return and conduct the inspection then.
So, hey guys, for the sake of time, JC and I do have to run and catch airplanes, but hey, we're always available. There's our information, whether you're a member or not of the NSSF or FFL Consultants community, give us a call. We're here to help you. We're sponsored by the National Shooting Sports Foundation. We're very big supporters of them as well. Again, go join them, learn more about them, and we'll get to see you at SHOT Show next year. Hopefully retain and safeguard your license, but call us before you get yourself in a pickle and we'll help you with any question you have. JC?
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Glad y'all joined us today. Look forward to hearing from you. Stay compliant, stay safe. We're on the road, so if you can't get a hold of us, leave us a voicemail or shoot us a text.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you on May 16th. May 16th. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.